Welcome back to another episode of Tactics, the series where we bring you the exact actions, not just strategies or ideas, actions that we are taking to help brands grow predictably and profitably. And today, we've got an area that I don't think we talk about enough, which is how to build a predictable and profitable email revenue plan. Email is a channel that should have the capacity to drive for you a very specific set of results because the inputs are totally in your control and it doesn't cost more to send more email necessarily. So by building a detailed plan with specific expectations of everything that you're going to do, you can consistently and predictably produce growth from this channel. And today we've got Luke Austin, our VP of Strategy, who oversees our retention team here at CTC, walking you through exactly how we do just that. As always, thank you to our sponsors, Saral and Dataships, for their continued support of this series. I'll be back later to tell you more about them.
This is how we create a predictable, profitable plan for driving email revenue contribution that ladders up to your business objective. In this example, what we can see for this specific brand is that we have a target revenue contribution from the email channel as a whole for the month of May of $251,000. Currently, we are projected to land at $292,000 against that target for the remainder of the month. And month to date, we're pacing over $7,000 ahead of the targets that we had set. So how do we get to this level of granularity in building our email plan? Well, it starts with creating expectations for the two core buckets of revenue contribution within the email channel, your campaigns and your flows. We'll start with talking through the flows, as that's the most predictable bucket of revenue contribution, most consistent. And then we'll talk through campaigns, which have the most variance related to the marketing calendar and send plan for the month. So on the flows revenue, we're going to identify each of our main flow buckets and assign a revenue contribution from them on a daily basis average for the month. So what you can see here is that total flows revenue, we are projecting $219,000 for the month, and month to date, we are at $97,000 as a whole. When we break it down on a flow level, we can see we have our welcome flow, cart abandon, browse abandon, post-purchase, samples, swatch samples, and our checkout abandon as our core flows that we're expecting revenue contribution from. Then what we are doing is we are looking back at prior months and prior periods to see what the average revenue contribution from each of these flow buckets is, and then assign that expectation to the coming days in this month to be able to track against whether we are on track or off track for those. So you can see for the welcome flow, we have an average of $3,000 a day that we're expecting in contribution from that channel. We are currently averaging $36.89 per day through the first 13 days of the month against that 3,000 projection. So we are ahead of revenue contribution from our welcome series flow and on down the line. Cart abandon, we're expecting $400 a day from on average. We can see some days are higher than others, but what we're really looking for here is within a 7-day window, are we tracking against the average contribution for that bucket of flow revenue? Browse abandon, a little higher, $700 a day, and then on down to post-purchase, swatch samples, and checkout abandon.
You guys have probably heard me say that I think LTV is a genetic attribute for most brands, meaning it's really hard to move with just marketing. But I want to show you something that I think can have a dramatic effect on your LTV today. And it starts right here on your checkout page. So we all know this little box right here that we're hoping our customers check to receive email and SMS from us, right? When we build the checkout page, we have to wrestle with, do we pre-check it? Do we not? And of course, that's a consideration for both compliance and opt-in rates. So we know that if you don't check it, right, you have a high level of compliance, low risk of causing any legal issues, but the opt-in rates are super low. They can be as low as 4%. Whereas if you pre-check it, you might get an opt-in rate of up to 54%, but you're running a lot of compliance risk depending on where the customer is around the world. Well, with Dataships, they actually do dynamic consent collection, where they recognize where the customer is from, ensure that you are following and complying with local law, and actually increasing the consent by helping the customer to be sure that they're being considered in the process. Now, why is this so important? Because the LTV of customers that do and do not subscribe is wildly different. Look at this data from Dataships. They see that a CLV, customer lifetime value, in apparel, as an example, for a non-subscribed customer is $47, where it's more than double for those that subscribe. Just checking that little box for a small subset of customers can massively increase the CLV of your cohorts. But don't take my word for it. Here's what they'll do. If you go speak to Dataships right now, they'll help you do an analysis to compare the value of an opted in versus an opted out customer. They'll then help you set up an A/B test of a dynamically collected or dynamic consent application to figure out how much you can improve the process, and they'll track the incremental revenue generated from that process. It's a win-win. Incremental LTV off of your customers by increasing your compliance. Say less. Dataships, check them out.
So when we're looking at our plan, what we're able to do at this point is see, okay, we are pacing to land ahead of our target. Month to date, we're 7.7K ahead of the targets that we had set out through the first 13 days of the month. Where's that coming from? Well, our flows are currently at $97,000 in actual revenue through the month, and what we had projected was $76,000. So we're pacing substantially ahead of our flow projected revenue month to date. And where that's coming from is, we just talked through, our welcome flow is pacing at about $3,700 a day on average versus $3,000 a day projection we had set. So that's one of the areas it's coming from. Cart abandon is pacing a little bit ahead as well, but we're seeing where the revenue delta is coming from, whether it's ahead or behind target, and then be able to solve from there. So now we have the expectation set for each of our flows, and we're able to track against how we're pacing against the targets that we have set, which flows are over or under pacing the expectation, and then we can focus the effort and energy accordingly. If we're seeing that our browse abandon or post purchase is pacing behind the expectation that we have set, behind what we'd historically expect from that channel's contribution, then we can focus the energy and resources accordingly and quickly identify where those gaps exist to be able to problem solve from. Now, looking at campaigns, the second bucket of revenue that we are going to project against and track the revenue contribution from. Every campaign is going to have a different revenue expectation relative to the type of campaign that it is. So you have sort of three core buckets of campaign types that you may be sending. One is editorial or educational. So this is more focused on FAQs, brand education, maybe fan favorites, PR features, etc. But it's not specifically product or promo oriented, which gets us to the second bucket, which is product oriented campaigns. This is for net new product launches, exclusives, new colorways, etc. And then the final bucket of being your promo campaigns, which are specifically related to an offer or promo that the brand is running. Typically, you're going to see revenue contribution lowest from editorial type campaigns. Product launch campaigns will be middle of the pack, and then the promo will be highest for the brand. This is where understanding how each of those buckets contributes different levels of revenue is really important to be able to set projections for those against. But what you can see here is we have each of the campaigns planned out for the remainder of May. So we have Mother's Day gifting. We had Mother's Day gifting on the 4th, on the 7th. There's a tariff pricing update and an offer associated with that. Mother's Day gifting on the 11th. Sample push for longtime subscribers coming up. Moving season campaign, and then 3 Memorial Day campaigns towards the end of the month. And what you can see is every campaign has a different revenue expectation aligned with it, right? So more the gifting angle, closer to a $5,000 expectation in terms of the revenue for these campaigns, whereas the tariff pricing update, $10,000 in projected revenue because there's more of an offer associated, and the the Memorial Day promotion, similar expectation being higher as it's oriented around an offer.
All right, if you've been following me for a while, you know I believe the real leverage in D2C growth today isn't happening just in your ad account. It's upstream to that. It's about who you are as a brand. And one of the best brand building activities that you can run is influencer marketing. And I don't just mean paying people to post for you or sending some famous people product. I mean building an owned influencer community, one that promotes you on repeat and drives relentless social proof. The best tool I found to do that is called Saral. Saral handles everything, seriously, end to end. You can discover any creator you want so they can help you define the ideal partners. You can automate all of your outreach at scale. It's crazy. Every communication, every relationship, all visible in one spot. It integrates with Shopify so you can ship the products really easily. You can also track all of your performance with their built-in tools. And then you can monitor every mention on Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube through their social listening platform. It's like HubSpot for influencer marketing. If you're serious about brand growth this year, you need to check it out. head to getsaral.com. We'll drop a link in the show notes and tell them Taylor sent you. I'll hook you up with a little love. Again, that's getsaral.com, and build your own influencer community today.
And so what we can see is that we're currently pacing well in terms of our campaign revenue against target. So through these first 13 days of the month at 31,000 against a projection of 20,000, with the beat specifically coming from our tariff pricing update, which beat the revenue expectation by about 10K. It's a really novel email campaign, novel point in time. And so this beat the expectation dramatically, which is great to the upside. The Mother's Day gifting on the other side of things on the 4th missed expectation by about $1,300. And so we can identify if we're behind or ahead of revenue, whether it's related to campaigns or to flows, which specific flow is over under pacing, which specific campaign over under paced goal. And then we understand where to focus the efforts and energy. And it gives us a gap to get after. If we're looking at a revenue gap to target for our email campaigns, then what we know is we can slot in another campaign or two, another resend later in the month. We can identify some of these open days, potentially on the 17th, slate in a resend of a previous email, resend a non-openers, and maybe drive $2,000-$3,000 of incremental revenue from that. But we have a specific gap to goal we're getting after, and we can plan against the revenue expectation of every piece of our email SMS program to make sure that it ladders up to the business objective, which is our target revenue, which is connected to the expectation of revenue contribution from email to get to the revenue projection set from the models, which is at the beginning of the process. So these are the pieces of creating predictable, profitable growth in an email plan. This is where we start at the beginning of every month in the planning process, not just which campaigns do we need against the marketing calendar, but what is the revenue expectation of each, and then every single flow, what can we expect that to contribute to get us to an overall expectation, track against it every day of the month, and make sure we are pacing ahead of the email revenue goal that we have set to ensure we're going to get to the business target.